Chapter 1081, Huge Transaction. The energy shield was depicted in the future technology in many foreign blockbusters Duan Mulin had watched. It was something he had long been craving to obtain. He felt this energy shield would be essential if it was used by the military. For example, if two armies were fighting and their side was protected by this energy shield, they could definitely avoid a lot of casualties. And yet, such a kind of advanced technology was used on this trivial aeroglider. That was simply wasting an excellent resource. Duan Mulin turned to Tang Xiu. He stared at his tranquil expression and inquisitively asked in a deep voice, "Tang Xiu, did you get this technology from that 3-star vestige?" "Senior Duanmu, I did get some tech gadgets from that 3-star vestige, but it doesn't include this energy shield." Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "You also have seen the array I've arranged. This energy shield is formed when that array is activated. An array has been installed on the hectometer aeroglider, so starting it is equal to activating the defensive array and forming that energy shield. Don't you realize this is the reason the energy batteries can only last up to 100 kilometers? Duan Mulin caught the explanation instantly, but he couldn't get Tang Xiu's last question. What facet should I've realized though? His question made Tang Xiu feel helpless. It's about the consumption of the batteries. The hectometer aeroglider could have been able to fly at least 500 kilometers or further should the energy batteries not expend so much power on the energy shield. Duan Mulin understood in a flash. Then, he nodded and said, "That makes sense. I've done my own research on arrays, but I found most of the materials needed to arrange them are jade stones." "Speaking about it, such energy comes from the jadites, right?" "That's correct." Tang Xiu nodded. Giving him a thumbs up, Duan Mulin praised. "To think that you actually applied some aspects of cultivation on this tech product, I can only use the word awesome to express my feeling. You're really a genius, Tang Xiu, indigenous talent that definitely transcends everyone else." Tang Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "You're flattering me, Senior Duanmu. Anyways, what about the third question?" "The last one is about the features for the upgraded version of this hectometer aeroglider," said Duan Mulin. "Will it have other functions? I can sign the contract with you here and now if your answer satisfies me." Tang Xiu and Kong Xia exchanged glances. Just as the latter was about to speak, Tang Xiu slightly raised his hand to stop her and said, "I can guarantee that the upgraded version of the hectometer aeroglider will have at least one more feature." "And that is?" asked Duan Mulin impatiently. "Invisibility," answered Tang Xiu. "What?" Tang Xiu's answered shocked and scared Duan Mulin. Invisibility meant stealth. Anything that could go invisible in this world would be horrifying. "There's one caveat of this invisible hectometer aeroglider, however," continued Tang Xiu. "We're not prepared to sell them since this feature is too terrifying. It will cause great damage should evil people use it." Aside from feeling relieved, Duan Mulin was burning inside. If this hectometer aeroglider had such a stealth feature, it was definitely on par with the so-called divine armament. If all the Chinese soldiers in the future used this gadget and went into stealth mode after starting it, they would definitely be able to completely annihilate all the enemies they fought, literally. After all, the enemies couldn't see them, but they could clearly see them. They could just come before the enemies without them being aware of anything, such an effect was. Shooting a deep gaze at Tang Xiu, Duan Mulin said, "I have trust in your character and I believe your guarantee. Tang Xiu, if your magnificent Tang Corporation develops this stealth version of hectometer aeroglider, you must never sell them to anyone or any force besides the Chinese Special Abilities Bureau. Otherwise, it will change the power structure in the world tremendously. Such a change will only spell enormous hidden dangers to various countries. I have discretion on this matter, so you can rest assured about that." Tang Xiu nodded. "Additionally, even if we do decide to sell this product to the Chinese military, we won't be able to sell too many of them, since I need to personally be involved in manufacturing it. My time is very limited, so I can only sell 100 units to the Chinese military. That's the limit. That's enough. Duanmu Lin happily nodded. Well, shall we sign the contract now, then, continued Tang Xiu with a smile. I have a hunch that you should have prepared the contract already, said Duanmu Lin. Just show it to us. We'll sign it now if we think there's no problem with the clauses. Tang Xiu faintly smiled and made a gesture to Kong Xia. The latter then immediately called the core executive of Magnificent Tang Corporation to bring 2 contracts. Without any concern, Tang Xiu quietly waited for Duanmu Lin and the several senior officers of the Special Abilities Bureau to finish reading it. There's no problem with the contract, though the quantity has yet to be filled. It should be left to us to decide, shouldn't it, said Duanmu Lin with a smile. That's certain. Tang Xiu nodded and said, besides, I don't know how big the order the state is to place, to begin with. If the number is too low, I'll have to promote this aeroglider to the private sector. After all, we've invested too much capital, time, and manpower for its research and development. We won't have any profits if the sales figure is too low, even likely suffering some losses. All right. But I need to make a call. Duanmu Lin nodded. Please feel free to do so, replied Tang Xiu with a smile. Duanmu Lin then got up and left the hall with the Special Abilities Bureau's senior officers. Nearby, incomparably shocking expressions were painted on the faces of Yuan Chuling, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and even Cheng Yannan, who had a special ability. They were just sitting dumbly and tongue-tied on the leather sofa, unable to sober up from their shocks. Prior to this, they thought that the Magnificent Tang Corporation only manufactured a few products, mainly cosmetics and some nutrient and supplement products, or the likes of excellent wine such as God's Nectar. But now, after hearing the content of the conversation between Tang Xiu and Duanmu Lin, they were really shocked since they realized that the MTC also had other products that could be described with one word: terrifying. The aeroglider. An object that could only be seen in science fiction literature and sci-fi movies. The level of technology mentioned was at least a few decades ahead of the current technology. It was even likely to be a century ahead. Tang Xiu watched the 4 people and a smile crept upon his face. He coughed twice and smilingly asked, well, are you guys scared? Do you realize that what I do is the so-called big business now? Yuan Chuling's family had inextricable links with the military. His father had also got his hands on the research and development of weapon technology and sold them to the military. Therefore, he was still able to grasp some of the contents. He was the first to sober up among the 4. However, his eyes as he looked at Tang Xiu were full of inexplicable shock and mixed feelings. You shouldn't have brought us over here, big bro. Yuan Chuling took a deep breath and forced a smile. You're aware of it now? Asked Tang Xiu with raised brows. I'll be a damn idiot if I can't realize anything. Yuan Chuling nodded and said, that's the core secret of your Magnificent Tang Corporation, but it's also the country's secret. Big bro, Tang, I think you shouldn't have brought us over even if you trust us. Realizing and being aware of it? Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, and Cheng Yannan, who just sobered up from their shocks, hurled tons of curses at Yuan Chuling inwardly. They didn't realize anything about the situation, but after this fella made it clear, it was just as clear as day that he lumped them like idiots in some other words. I believe you all, guys. What I trust in is not only your character, but I also believe that you won't dare to disclose it to anyone else. Tang Xiu smilingly said, Senior Duanmu is the state official in charge of a very special department. If you dare to disclose anything about this matter, it will mean that you're selling a state secret. You guys won't only end up in the military courts, but also be executed. Gasp. Yuan Chuling's group of 4 gasped a cold air at the same time. Okay, never mind it, though. Just keep it rotten inside your belly. Tang Xiu smiled and said, besides, it won't take long before the Magnificent Tang Corporation announces the hectometer aeroglider to the public. Well, it should be next year when we begin to sell it to the customers around the world. The four people immediately let out sighs of relief upon hearing the news. All of them looked excited. If the magnificent Tang Corporation were to sell the hectometer aeroglider to the public, didn't it mean that they could also buy it? Being able to fly was always a human dream, to begin with. They were all ordinary people and thus were no exception. They looked at the hectometer aeroglider on the table and began fantasizing, riding the hectometer aeroglider, flying to sky and hovering above the island, such a free flight, like a bird. Duanmu Lin and the senior executives from the Special Abilities Bureau then returned to the hall. Looks of joy could be seen on their faces. After each one of them took a seat, Duanmu Lin then spoke, "Tang Xiu, the big boss wants me to convey his message to you." Tang Xiu's face slightly changed and nodded with a serious face. What's his instruction? If you want to fully operate the manufacturing of hectometer aeroglider into ordinary business and sell it to the public, it must be done after you've developed the upgraded version of this product, said Duanmu Lin. Our country must grasp the most advanced aeroglider, which is at least much more advanced than the ordinary ones sold on the market. That won't be a problem. Tang Xiu quickly nodded. Also, the magnificent Tang Corp can sell the product to domestic buyers and the country won't be participating, continued Duanmu Lin. But if you want to sell this product globally, would you like to cooperate with the country? You should know that this product will bring about tremendous influence to the world once it goes global. With the country as your backing, your company will have the biggest guarantor and safeguard. Tang Xiu was shocked and then asked, what does the country want for these? Well, the big boss wants the price to be halved starting from the upgraded version, answered Duanmu Lin with a smile. Of course, the state will also provide great support for all the businesses under your company all over China with various preferential policies. Deal? Tang Xiu agreed without hesitation. He was very satisfied with the proposal. Duanmu Lin smiled and said, if so, let's sign the contract, then. For the first order, we want 10,000 hectometer aeroglider and 1 million energy batteries. The money will be immediately wired to your private account once we receive the products. Chapter 1082, Thoroughly Convinced. Tang Xiu and Kong Xia exchanged glances, and both were happy inwardly due to the quantity of the order. It must be noted that each hectometer aeroglider unit was priced at 2 million yuan, so 10,000 units would 20 billion yuan, whereas the energy battery was 200 yuan each, which meant they would get 200 million yuan from selling 1 million units. How much did they invest previously to develop this hectometer aeroglider, you ask? Tang Xiu inwardly laughed. The total investment he gave to MOE's tech team for the development funds was 200 million yuan. And Kong Xia had reported to him that only half of it was used. Furthermore, this was just the beginning. The moment that money came rolling in would be when the hectometer aeroglider began to enter the market and sold to the public. There would be countless people, various countries, and numerous forces competing to buy it. At that time, the fortune they would obtain would simply be too many to count. As Tang Xiu thought up to this point, he looked at Duanmu Lin and said, Senior Duanmu, after our magnificent Tang Corporation finishes developing the upgraded version of the hectometer aeroglider, we won't only give the state 50% discount, but I'm also willing to share 20% of the global profit sales as donation. In response, Duanmu Lin shot a deep gaze to Tang Xiu. After a long time, he gave a thumbs up and praised. I won't say thanks, but you can expect the support from the state when the hectometer aeroglider is sold globally in the future. Alrighty. Tang Xiu firmly nodded. In fact, he knew perfectly well that if ordinary people, or if some super-rich tycoon owned this kind of heaven-defying and a state-of-the-art product, the state would, in all likelihood, go so far so as to control them and even confiscate it. After all, the profits would be beyond just being lucrative, even the state wouldn't be able to ignore it. However, he was not any Tom, Harry, or Jerry. The state wouldn't dare to strong-arm him. No matter what era, the world was still run based on the hard truth where might makes right. Tang Xiu looked at Kong Xia and said in a deep voice, allocate 10% of the profits for charity when the hectometer aeroglider is sold globally. Establish schools and hospitals to help all those in need in China. This 10% allocation must never be disturbed no matter how much we earn. Kong Xia looked back at Tang Xiu with admiration and love. She knew his heart. He always treated his enemies ruthlessly, but the deepest recess of his heart was full of kindness. She could even imagine that 10% of the profits earned from selling the hectometer aeroglider would be a huge figure, and yet he still decided as such. She could imagine how many people would benefit from it in the future. The figure would absolutely be sky high. Duanmu Lin looked at Tang Xiu with a slightly different expression. The previous Tang Xiu had medical ethics and did some good deeds out of kindness. But his decision now would change the fate of countless poor people. This was a virtuousness out of a righteous principle. After signing the contract, Duanmu Lin and the Special Abilities Bureau's top executives no longer stayed. They didn't even have dinner as they hurriedly left Jingmen Island. At dinner, Tang Xiu took Kong Xia and Yuan Chuling's group of 4 to have a meal in the hall. After satiating their hunger and thirst, the shock that shrouded Yuan Chuling's group had completely disappeared. Tang Xiu asked the waiter to remove the leftovers and changed the servings into tea. Then, he took out a cigarette and lit it up. Yuan Chuling, Yu Kai, and Hu Qingsong. You 3 should understand now what big business is, right? Asked Tang Xiu with a smile.
Yeah.
I just witnessed it. I admit. Yuan Chuling forced a wry smile with twitching lips. In actuality, today's business deal is only one of the deals carried out by my magnificent Tang Corporation. It wasn't that big of a deal at all, Tang Xiu continued with a smile. If anything, I've been thinking about you guys. The fortune earned by my company is hard to imagine for you as the capital from the deals between me and the country, or with other prominent business owners, is sometimes bigger than the deal you just witnessed. The 3 of you are my classmates and also my brothers, yet you just ran to Jingmen Island for a dogfight for some trivial pocket money. How do you feel about that? Yuan Chuling let out a dry smile and said, Big bro, Tang, if I were to say that I feel confident and good about myself, you'd definitely slap me and pull my ears. Frankly, my old man is the person I've been admiring the most since he's a self-made man who fights against the world with barely anything, yet he earns so much money and now becomes a powerful man. But you're my biggest idol now. I give you my word that I'll definitely look up to you in the future. I'll strive hard and manage my business well so I can make a fortune myself. What old Yuan said are my thoughts exactly, big bro, Tang, echoed Yu Kai. I won't be careless and neglect my responsibility by fooling around again later, and I'll seriously consider my future path. Also, even though I've told you many times that I'm thankful to you, I won't say it this time and put it in my heart. Hu Qingsong scratched the back of his head and dryly smiled. Well, big bro, Tang. You know I don't have such great abilities, nor do I have big ambitions. But today, you really gave me too much stimulation, you know. Well, I just meekly ask you whether you have a younger brother to serve you tea and the likes, though. I'll do everything you tell me even if it is to sleep. Bah, get lost. Tang Xiu snappily cursed and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh upon hearing his words. Then, he spoke again, anyhow, you got your old man's enterprise, old Yuan. You'll take it over in the future, so it's your call to choose your own path. Yu Kai, your family is also doing business, so I won't say much. But when you take over your father's business in the future, my company can cooperate with your family in many aspects, so we can earn a fortune together. Got it. All right. Yuan Chuling and Yu Kai nodded quietly in answer. Hu Qingsong, on the other hand, rolled his eyes and unhappily said, What about me, big bro? Tang Xiu chuckled and said, Well, you can work for me later just like Xue Chao. Relax, though. I'm sure those who work for me can also become billionaires. Hu Qingsong's eyes lit up and he excitedly rubbed his hands. Hold up. Don't feel that happy first, will you? Tang Xiu smilingly said, I have my own rules for employing people, at least you gotta have the ability to deserve it. If anything, since you don't want to stay at Shanghai University for a long time, then you should study while working part-time. Kong Xia, take care of this boy and arrange for him an internship in the company branch in Shanghai. Make him start from the bottom and give him all the hard work. You gotta squeeze him to make out an excellent leader out of this guy before he graduates from college. No problem. Kong Xia smilingly nodded. She was sincerely happy upon seeing Tang Xiu arrange these students in this way. It showed that he didn't look down on Yuan Chuling and the rest because of their ability and current status, while at the same time proving himself as a real man with an empathetic heart. Hu Qingsong didn't say anything more but feels so moved. He had been in the dark and confused about the path ahead. Even if he was greatly stimulated today, it was never easy to create any great cause for accomplishments. At the very least, he didn't have much capital to support himself. He could feel Tang Xiu's sincerity and also understood him as an affectionate and empathetic brother. He wasn't the only one Tang Xiu treated like this since he witnessed him help Xue Chao many times. Late at night, Tang Xiu stood quietly by the window while hugging Kong Xia's slender waist, looking at the dim streetlights outside and the dancing shadows of the trees. At this time, he felt very tranquil inside. Are you going back to Shanghai, or return to Star City? Asked Tang Xiu gently to Kong Xia's ear. What I want the most is to leave for Nine Dragons Island with you, replied Kong Xia softly. All right, let's go together since you wish it so. Tang Xiu smiled and said, arrange and delegate your work first and then give yourself a vacation. Having your words is already enough, though. Kong Xia smiled and said, anyways, the magnificent Tang Corporation is literally having a harvest season, so I need to stay in Star City to supervise it, while there are also some issues in Shanghai. The progress of the project there is very fast after we invested more capital, so the construction keeps going without stopping with 3 shifts. Given the speed of the progress, the company's headquarters and industrial park in Shanghai will be fully built before the end of next year. I see. Tang Xiu smiled and said, once our industrial park is built and becomes operational, the magnificent Tang Corporation can really start to fully circulate the funds by then. I think you've been too occupied with work all this time. It's hard on you and not a good situation. You and Andy should prepare to find your successors. I'm hoping that you'll spend more of your time to cultivate in the future. Isn't it too early? Kong Xia hesitated and said, it's only been a year and a half from founding the company until the present. More so that the company is now developing rapidly. If I and Andy were to hand over our works, I'm afraid. What I mean is not handing over your work right away but finding your successor, replied Tang Xiu smilingly. At least, you must train a trustworthy person as your confidant. You must also foster their work ethics and abilities and comprehend their understanding about the magnificent Tang Corporation. Plan it for a year and a half or so. Once our headquarters and industrial park in Shanghai have been fully built, you can hand over your works whenever you've stabilized the situation. I know. I already plan to do that too. Kong Xia nodded and said, you can rest assured that Andy and I won't neglect our cultivation. In fact, I really want to hug you and get some sleep peacefully. Tang Xiu smiled lightly and said, it's just unfortunate that my schedule is so tight. I need to bring some people to Nine Dragons Island overnight. All right, go have some rest. I'll be back soon and allocate some time to accompany you later. After half an hour, the disciples of the Tang sect had boarded the buses and quickly arrived at a certain port in Jingmen Island. The passenger liner then set sail and quickly disappeared into the dark sea. This time, the route wasn't planned to head straight to Saipan. Despite the help of the Chinese authorities forcing various forces to leave, The information released by the Celestial Wizard clan had made many forces furious even though they eventually left. But some forces were still not convinced and sent some people to stay in Saipan to investigate. Even some liners were still seen wandering about and on the lookout in the Pacific Ocean. After returning to Nine Dragons Island, Tang Xiu immediately issued a reorganization order and provided a number of cultivation resources. Just as he was about to busy himself and see Gu Yan, the travel-worn Jin Shi rushed back from the outside. To Tang Xiu's surprise, he was badly battered and injured, and some Tang sect disciples who followed him were even more seriously injured. If it wasn't for their holy healing pills, they would have already died outside. Chapter 1083, Potential Enemies. In the lofty palace, Tang Xiu strode into the luxuriously decorated meeting hall. A chilling light flashed in his eyes upon seeing the badly scarred Jin Shi as he asked in a heavy voice, "What happened?" Struggling to stand up from the chair, Jin Shi bitterly replied, "We've been ambushed by a group of unknown origin. There were a lot of them, and they were also very strong." "You have yet to figure out their identity?" asked Tang Xiu with a frown. "They just popped up and hit us in surprise right away, leaving us no time to figure out anything." Jin Shi shook his head. "But I'm sure they're not normal humans given their actions. They are much like genetic warrior." Lighting up a cigarette, Tang Xiu said, "I may have some ideas on their origins." "You know where they come from, sect master?" Jin Shi was surprised. "How can that be? You haven't even seen them." Tang Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and calmly said, "Do you remember the Brain Assembly Biotech in Shanghai and Xie Jiqiang, who researched some genetic drugs back then?"
Yeah.
"I remember them." Jin Shi nodded. "That man who had some dealings with Xie Jiqiang in Shanghai was called Austin Cole from SOE Company or something," said Tang Xiu. "This company deals with drugs and medical equipment business on the surface, but it's actually a very mysterious arms dealer company in Europe. Austin Cole was the third in command in this SOE company, and he controlled less than half of the SOE company's armed forces. Although he died in Shanghai, I think this SOE company hasn't given up on the genetic agents and is likely cooperating with other research institutions, aside from Xie Jiqiang's." "You mean, those people who ambushed us were from this SOE company, sect master?" asked Jin Shi. "But I don't get why they attacked us. Austin Cole is dead, and so is Xie Jiqiang. We seized the genetic agents and nobody knows that. There's no wall with no ears in this world, mind you." Tang Xiu grimly smiled. "Don't forget the existence of the Dark Wind organization. The intel operatives of this organization are simply everywhere in the world. We previously thought the fact that we killed Xie Jiqiang and got the genetic agents was very secretive, but it may have been discovered by some intel operatives of this Dark Wind organization. Sovereign, it's high time for us to annihilate this Dark Wind organization," replied Jin Shi angrily. "Otherwise, anything we do has the risk of being exposed." "The Dark Wind will definitely be destroyed, but it's not yet the time," said Tang Xiu vaguely. "The full force of our sect is very strong, but we are too few in number. We may be able to kill some flocks of docile sheep, but still, it will be troublesome for us if the number is too many. Then let's neutralize all the top executives of this Dark Wind organization directly." "That would be enough, right?" said Jin Shi. Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "Do you know where the Dark Wind's headquarters is, and who their top executives are?" About that, Jin Shi was speechless and dumbfounded. Tang Xiu took out his mobile phone and quickly searched Song Guanghui's number. Since the most powerful man in Saipan had died, Song Guanghui had become the acting chief executive of Saipan. Although his current temporary title had yet to be removed, Tang Xiu learned from Song Guanghui that the position of the highest officer in Saipan wouldn't escape from his hands. "Hello, Uncle Song. There's something I need your help with." "You need my assistance? That makes me happy, kid. So tell me, what is it?" Song Guanghui chuckled. My men have been attacked in Saipan a little over 2 days ago and were forced to flee in bad conditions, said Tang Xiu. However, the thing is, they don't know who those people are, nor do they know their origins. But it's been confirmed that they should be genetic warriors and are very likely to be related to the SOE company. Have you heard about this said company, Uncle Song? The SOE? Song Guanghui's voice tone involuntarily rose. Song Guanghui was silent for half a minute. Then, he slowly said, "You ask me whether I know it? What I know is beyond that. I know very well about this company since I even planted some people there. Tang Xiu, if the people who ambushed your men are really from there, it's very likely there are more things than meet the eye. We need to talk it over, carefully." Tang Xiu's mind shifted and he inquired. Is it related to the incidents in the past? Correct. They pushed us to the brink, said Song Guanghui. It may not have been done by this SOE company directly, but another company that's been controlled by the same family who owns SOE. This family is called as House Dolan. How come I haven't heard about this house, though, murmured Tang Xiu with a frown. In this world, some families are famous and some are hidden in the dark, yet they are controlling massive wealth and power. Song Guanghui said, House Dolan is the latter. They operate some businesses, but we haven't found their base so far, though we've been secretly investigating some forces we found to be under this house. Uncle Song, if those people who ambushed my men are really from the SOE company, it's very likely this House Dolan is far more powerful than imagined. Those genetic warriors are very strong. They struck heavy blows to my men, even though they are already powerful people. If so, then you want me to find and confirm the identity of those people who ambushed your men, whether they are from the SOE company or not, yes? Song Guanghui inquired. That's right, said Tang Xiu. I'll get it done immediately. Just wait for my message, said Song Guanghui. Uncle Song, please do not act rashly after you found anyone from the SOE company in Saipan. Just inform me and I'll send my own men immediately. Tang Xiu urged. Rest assured, said Song Guanghui. Even your men were unable to face them, so I naturally won't touch them. Facing them head-on will be like trying to hit a boulder with an egg. Tang Xiu was at ease upon hearing his response. After hanging up, he mulled over it for a while and then decided to leave for Saipan immediately. Regardless of whether those people who ambushed Jin Shi's team were from the SOE company or not, they dared to become Tang Sec's enemies, so they must pay a painful price. Certainly, if they were really from that company, it meant that it put more tabs to their enmity, which demanded retaliation from him. This time, Tang Xiu didn't bring many people, but all of them were Tang Sec's elites. Not only did he bring Tang Guang and Tang An, but also Mo Hao Lei, Kawako Yamamoto, and Tang 28. After quite a while, a group of 7 people appeared in the port of Saipan, and Tom Reggie, who got the news in advance, caught up with them to personally fetch them up. As several SUVs were heading to Lao Bay Resort, Tang Xiu leaned back against the seat, his eyes sparkling, full of thoughtfulness. Then, he asked, has the official appointment of Uncle Song's position been passed down? It has been passed down 2 days ago. He's the highest official of Saipan now, said Tom Reggie. Everything about the previous one has been cleaned up and won't leave any impact. Tang Xiu slowly nodded and said, anyways, you won't be involved in dealing with the current problem since there are some other things I need you to deal with. What would you like me to do, boss? Asked Tom Reggie hurriedly. Do you still remember Spectre and those who got rescued from that prison? Asked Tang Xiu.
Yeah.
I remember them. Tom Reggie nodded. I need you to mix with them and observe their situation, said Tang Xiu. Pick out some reliable people secretly, and then set up a temporary organization. It doesn't need to have many people, just 50 are enough. What kind of organization would you like me to set up, boss? Like, its main mission, asked Tom Reggie. You used to be an expert who went through the flame of the battlefields, said Tang Xiu. You have rich combat experience, and there's no issue with your killing skills. I've trained some children, so I'm considering sending them to see some blood. Therefore, your mission will be to lead these children, set up a small team and send them to any place with conflicts all over the world. I'll carry out your arrangement, boss. Tom Reggie nodded. If anything, this issue is not that urgent and you don't need to rush it, continued Tang Xiu. I'll give you a special training first while teaching you a cultivation technique to further strengthen your power, so you can survive longer on the battlefield. Tom Reggie was excited and said, "Thanks a lot, boss. You can expect my best in carrying this out." As noon came, Tang Xiu met Song Guanghui, who rushed to Lao Bei Resort in secret. This time, the latter brought only a few of his confidants. In the villa. After the two of them took a seat face to face, Song Guanghui said, "I need to tell you that investigating this issue won't be easy, Tang Xiu. There are many strangers in Saipan at present, many of whom are terrifyingly powerful people from various forces. What about those from the Big Three?" "Who is still in Saipan?" asked Tang Xiu. "The Stygian Club," answered Song Guanghui. Tang Xiu furrowed his brows and sneered. "Humph. I've killed a lot of people from the Stygian Club, but I didn't expect them to never stop with their malice. In fact, I have long been wanting to clean up this organization, but I always feel the time isn't right yet. But since they still have their minions here, I'll get rid of them first." "Hey, you can't take them lightly," said Song Guanghui hurriedly. "The people I sent to investigate the Stygian Club's people told me they have quite a number of people here, nearly 100. Some of whom are wandering about from place to place and disappearing from time to time. It won't be so easy to deal with them. Additionally, the other forces will also discover you easily once you lead your men to the Stygian Club. Rest assured, Uncle Song. I won't move unless a good opportunity appears," Tang Xiu assured. "The most important issue now is to investigate whether there are people from SOE Company in Saipan. If they are really here, then we will collect some interests from yesteryear first. I'll try my best to send some people to investigate it, mind you." Song Guanghui squeezed a wry smile and said, "But I think you gotta assign some people from Tom Reggie too, since there are some places inconvenient for my men to go into, but easy for Tom's men to investigate. However, Tom has some enemies in Saipan too, so if possible, it's best to help him completely control the underground forces in Saipan first." Chapter 1084, Vicious Dog-Eat-Dog Situation. Tang Xiu himself was well aware of Tom Reggie's situation in Saipan. The man's power and influence in Saipan were originally mediocre at best. He couldn't even enter the top 3 among the underground forces of Saipan. He could be said to enter the stage by taking the opportunity of Song Guanghui's rise to power and then annex several small forces, to expand his power greatly. "Give me 3 days." Tang Xiu raised 3 fingers and said, "In 3 days, Tom will become the overlord and gain full control of the life and death of Saipan's underground forces. Uncle Song, you've become the most powerful official, so you'll be in the light, yet someone from our side must also control the underground forces here." His declaration made Song Guanghui shocked, but he hesitantly said, "I'm not skeptical about your strength, Tang Xiu, but isn't 3 days way too short? The 3 strongest underground forces in Saipan are all inextricably linked with some underground forces in other countries. In particular, the Ravengale Chamber, which I heard is deeply related to the Stygian Club. It's very likely that this organization is one of the Stygian Club's divisions." "Ravengale Chamber?" Tang Xiu narrowed his eyes and smilingly said, "Uncle Song, even if the Ravengale Chamber is the Stygian Club's HQ, I can still destroy it completely if I want to, albeit paying a price. Please rest your worry. I've never acted without preparing enough armaments. But before we go into action, we will investigate this Ravengale Chamber first." Song Guanghui nodded wordlessly. Then, he spoke, "As long as you can get rid of the Ravengale Chamber, the Golden Cauldron and the Speeder Union won't pose any significant threat."
Ah.
"No. Do pay attention to Jameson, the leader of Speeder Union. He's a ruthless and powerful character, and rumors have it that he's closely related to many drug lords and arms dealers.
Yeah.
I heard about this Speeder Union from Awe too. Tang Xiu nodded and said, but there's no need to fear them if we got absolute strength, though. Recalling Tang Xiu's identity, Song Guanghui immediately stopped mentioning this topic. He chatted with him about some other things before secretly leaving Lao Bei Resort. Late at night, Tang Xiu received a phone call from Tom Reggie and got two important news. At this moment, the Speeder Union's HQ was under attack by many experts from Raven Gale Chamber and was said to be in a desperate struggle. The other news said that a group of mysterious people had come to the Golden Cauldron from other countries about half an hour ago. The tide has begun surging in the dark. When Tang Xiu hung up the phone and floated out of the villa's door, a few figures silently appeared behind him. Two parties are in conflict while the third one will come to fish the benefits. So, if my guess is correct, tonight will be the harvest time for us. Get ready, guys. Keep in touch with Tom's men since we're going to stir up the waters of the underground forces in Saipan. Why would you choose such troublesome means, Grandmaster? Asked Tang Guang smilingly. Let's just strike them directly and destroy the other underground forces here. Tang Xiu glanced at him and vaguely said, having confidence is a good thing, but you must never underestimate anyone. We don't know much about Saipan's underground forces or any relations they may have with the huge organizations of other countries. We don't even know how powerful the enemies we're about to face are either. That's why it's necessary to figure out our enemy's strength before we move out. Even though it's impossible to clarify everything precisely, it's still necessary to know some things about them. The smile on Tang Guang's face receded. A short while after, he said with an embarrassed face, I saw myself too highly, Grand Master. You're still young, so your thoughts and style are still immature. Tang Xiu smiled and said, but you'll be able to analyze more issues after you have more experience in the future, though. I'm still young? Tang Guang stared at Tang Xiu with a bizarre expression. A similar expression could also be seen on Mo and the rest. They looked at Tang Xiu's appearance, who was still in his early 20s. They couldn't help but murmur to themselves inwardly. Screech. Four black SUVs stopped in front of the villa and the driver from the forefront car opened the door. He strode toward Tang Xiu and respectfully said, Mr. Tang, boss told us to pick you up. All right, let's head there as fast as you can, said Tang Xiu. Understood. After everyone boarded the cars, the four black SUVs quickly left the Lao Bei Resort. However, in a hotel a few hundred meters away from them, a bald man received a report from his subordinate and immediately left with four burly men. After the four black SUVs had just left the gate of Lao Bei Resort, several Hummers vroom to pursue them shortly after. Speed up. In one of the Hummers, the bald man clicked his lips and a cold light flashed in his eyes as he issued an order aloud. The burly man driving the Hummer stepped on the accelerator deeper and asked, Are you sure those people ahead are heading toward the Speeder Union's HQ, boss? Tom Reggie's movements have been quite big recently, and he has annihilated some forces. Could it be that he dares to hit our Speeder Union after we've suffered some losses from the siege? Tom Reggie is an ambitious guy. He even betrayed his former employer. The bald man sneered and said, he has been in cahoots with someone in power recently, so there's nothing this man can't do. If anything, we just need to keep tabs on this bastard closely. So long as those cars head toward the direction of our Speeder Union's HQ, we can still report to the big boss once they get near the BMS building. A few minutes after, the four SUVs gradually slowed down, partly due to the traffic congestion on the road ahead and also because they found they had some people tailing them. We got some company 90 meters behind, Grand Master. Tang Guang, who used to be good at using sniper rifles, reported in a whisper after spotting several cars behind them. Tang Xiu let out a smile and took out 3 silver needles from his interspatial ring. Using his mental power, he flicked the needless through the slit in the window and shot it fast towards the tailing Hummers behind. Bump. 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 The 3 silver needles accurately shot the front wheels of the 3 Hummers, causing them to crash toward the roadside as the tires burst. In that instant, Tang Guang and Mo bolted out of the cars, leaving only after images. Without anyone noticing, they dashed toward the accident scene. Stop and park ahead. After issuing the order, Tang Xiu slowly shut his eyes. As of now, various people were gathering in Saipan, and the tide of the storm was brewing underneath. He wasn't sure which side the people tracking him belonged to. Nevertheless, he was rather glad about this mess since only then could he fish in troubled waters, gaining benefits and achieving his own goals. Behind them, Tang Guang and Mo appeared by the 3 Hummers lightning fast. They quickly launched a barrage of punches to the heads of those who came out of the car and directly knocked them out, under the cover of the 3 cars. Tang Guang then grabbed a burly man by the neck and quickly disappeared with him. In a remote spot nearby, Mo slapped the face of the big man. As the latter sobered up, a dagger was placed on his neck and Mo began interrogating him in a heavy voice with a face full of killing intent. Tell me, which side do you belong to and why are you tailing us? The dizzy burly man raised his head and felt a chilling sensation on his neck. When he saw the seething killing intent in Mo's eyes, a chill overran his whole being and fear enveloped his heart. He was no stranger with those eyes since he had also killed people and had contact with numerous outlaws. Such eyes only belonged to ruthless killers. At this moment in time, he felt as though the angel of death had come to greet him. Although he thought that he'd never fear death in the past, he couldn't help but feel despair facing such a hopeless situation himself. His lips squirmed a few times before he answered, "We are the Raven Gale." The Raven Gale should be attacking the Speeder Union's HQ now. What the hell are you tracking us for? Asked Mo once again. Are you telling me you're going to get rid of Tom Reggie after removing the Speeder Club? The burly men stared blankly and asked in surprise, huh? You guys are not Tom Reggie's men? Like hell we are. Mo sneered. Then it's our mistake, it seems. The burly man helplessly said, we were just tracking Tom Reggie's cars, but we know nothing about the people who boarded them. In actuality, we got no plan to get rid of Tom Reggie since he's very closely related to some great figures in Jingmen Island. The only concern my big boss has is that Tom Reggie will take his men to trouble us when we're attacking the Speeder Union. Mo nodded in response and stunned the fella again with a punch. Then, he quickly returned to the car with Tang Guang and reported the situation to Tang Xiu. We didn't silence them and just stun them all. That's fine. They're nothing but small fries, to begin with. Tang Xiu nodded and issued an order. Let's set off again and rush to the Speeder Union's HQ. I want to see how big the price the Raven Gale must pay to annihilate the Speeder Union. 20 minutes later, Tang Xiu met Tom Reggie in a building near the Speeder Union's HQ. This guy's expression at the moment was splendid, and he seemed happy as he reported. The Speeder Union got some heavy weapons. Even though the Raven Gale has excellent first-class snipers and powerful assaulters aside from those demi-human experts, to storm them over, they are still unable to breach the Speeder Union's final defense line. Also, the Speeder Union got some powerful characters, boss. But they are not human. Tang Xiu took the binoculars handed over to him and went to the windows to observe. Then, he asked, what kind of demi-humans can make you this shocked though? They're like superhuman and very powerful, boss, said Tom Reggie with a wry smile. I just saw a sniper bullet hit one of those guys' heart, but he just got injured by it. The bullet just couldn't kill him. He even counterattacked directly and killed some experts of Raven Gale. Superhuman? Tang Xiu kept observing with the binoculars and soon spotted some figures flickering about in the final line of defense of the Speeder Union. They were using firearms to counterattack and even used hidden weapons or cold weapons to kill their enemies. They must be genetic warriors. He kept observing for some time and immediately recognized the situation and identity of those people due to the level of strength they were displaying. Among them were a few with hairy bodies and looking like humanoid beasts. What about the losses of each side? Tom asked Tang Xiu while observing. Chapter 1085, Watching the Night Battle. From my observation, the Speeder Union suffered heavy casualties, especially after the last fight. The Raven Gale caught them off guard and their men killed half of the Speeder Union's people. However, after those demi-humans joined the fray, the Raven Gale lost quite a number as well, said Tom Reggie. Tang Xiu continued observing for a few more minutes. Then, he put away the binoculars and said, "The Speeder's final line of defense should have been broken in 10 minutes if it wasn't for that reinforcement. The Raven Gale has so many experts, and some of them haven't even moved yet. My guess is that they are experts from the Stygian Club." The Stygian Club. Although Tom Reggie had such a guess, hearing it directly from Tang Xiu shook regardless. He even imagined that if the Ravengale's target was him and his men, it was likely that he wouldn't last even 10 minutes before getting slaughtered. That was so chilling. Tom Reggie shivered. He looked at Tang Xiu with a bit of awe and said in a suppressed voice, "Boss, are we just only watching the show today or joining in the fray too? If my guess is correct, the Raven Gale will go after the Golden Cauldron after they have trampled the Speeders. Also, given the former's strength, the latter can only wait for their destruction. How can we just watch the show after such a godsend opportunity presented itself?" replied Tang Xiu calmly. "Nevertheless, we still need to do something before we move." "What?" Tom Reggie's spirit rose and he immediately asked. Tang Xiu swept over at Tang Guang and the rest, saying coolly, "Tang 28, you're to stay here, while the rest of you will silence all the informers of various forces in the surroundings. I don't want any forces to find out any of our actions tonight." "Understood." Tang Guang, Mo Ao, Hao Lei, and Kawako Yamamoto shortly replied and instantly disappeared from the room. Their speed was so fast that tens of Tom Reggie's trusted men had drastic changes of expressions with horrified eyes. At a spot they couldn't see, the air suddenly fluctuated a bit as the hidden Tang and quickly left. A surprised look on his face, Tom Reggie asked, "You said there are informers from other forces around here, boss? But how come I and my men didn't spot any of them?" "You missed them because your men are too weak." Tang Xiu sneered. There are some rats from at least 3 forces. Not only are they monitoring the situation around Speeder's HQ, but they're also keeping tabs on us. You can expect to be easy prey should any of them think of getting rid of you and your men." Eyes shrunk, Tom Reggie was scared shitless. He didn't even question Tang Xiu's words since he knew his abilities. But never once it occurred to him that there were so many operatives from other forces keeping tabs on him. "Boss." Tom Reggie opened his mouth but was interrupted by Tang Xiu, who smiled and said faintly, "I know what you want to say, but keep them in mind now. We just started to silence the rats of those forces in the surroundings. It will only take up to 10 minutes to remove all of them. Tell your men to get ready for action. We'll move once the Raven Gale breaks the Speeder's final line of defense." "Roger that." Tom Reggie received the order and immediately walked out of the room. The battle at the Speeder's HQ was very fierce and intense. Both sides were not only using heavy weaponry, but also sending many of their experts to fight. Tens of people from both sides quickly met their deaths in just a short time. In the manner about the size of a soccer field, an armed force of Raven Gale Chamber nearly 100 strong kept mounting assaults on the 4-story building on the innermost side, whereas fire snakes burst out at the windows of the 4-story building, creating a frightening fire-crossing grid that blocked the enemy's attack route. In the hall on the 1st floor, the Speeder Union's leader, Jameson's eyes were overflowing with a chilling light. After smashing his cell phone, he ripped off several buttons on his coat and shouted while taking out a submachine gun. All the retreat routes are blocked, leaving zero chance of escape to us. Brothers, the reinforcement will arrive as long as we can hold on for an hour. Join me to kill them all, for we'll be dead should this last line of defense breaks. Kill. Tens of burly men in the hall went trigger-happy and targeted the enemies outside who were attempting to storm inside, while more than 20 mysterious people in black training suits led by a man with a black mask calmly sat cross-legged, in the innermost core. They seemed unaware of the dangerous rain of bullets happening around them. Jameson's ferocious face kept glancing at the 20-plus people hiding in the corner from time to time. Lots of his men had died and only about 50 of them were still kicking, but these 20-plus people were like his hidden trump card. He was perfectly clear that as long as they were here, the reinforcement would arrive in time. He also knew that if these people were to join in the fray, let alone holding on for an hour, even staying for a day or two wouldn't be a problem. Each second and every minute kept ticking by. The casualties kept growing in both the Ravengale and the Speeder. The last line of defense of the latter was nearly breached due to the assault from the divergent races of the Ravengale side a few times. Use the injection. As Jameson saw one of his confidants fall into a pool of blood more than 10 meters away with scarlet and white liquid gushing out from the hole on his forehead, his face turned blue and he looked more ferocious. He quickly squatted in the corner, opened a black suitcase, and pulled a tube of blue agents from it. Then, he extracted it with a syringe and quickly injected it into his right arm. Ho! Ho! A howl similar to a beast's burst out from his mouth. His face twisted and his whole body violently shivered. Strips of blue veins and blood vessels rapidly protruded out and his physique began to swell at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few seconds, his body had grown taller and bigger a few times. In the surroundings, tens of Jameson's men went through a similar situation and began to transform after injecting the blue gene agents. Their eyes turned bloodshot, their speed was faster and they were much stronger than before. The battle kept going, yet none among Jameson and his men died after several minutes. Although their injuries increased bit by bit, it seemed that they weren't even affected at all. On the contrary, several people from the Ravengale were killed in a violent charge. At this time, however, the rest of Jameson's men who were previously in the hall on the first floor with those 20-plus people sitting cross-legged, had now moved to a big room on the third floor, leaving only 6 stalwart men armed with heavy machine guns. And yet, those 20-plus mysterious people wearing masks remained sitting cross-legged in the corner. Whoosh! 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 3 shadows flickered and dashed lightning fast from the distance and came under the building in the blink of an eye. Their speed was extremely fast and seemed like 3 flashing blue clouds of smoke. They instantly threw 3 anti-tank grenades to the interior through the window. Boom, boom, boom. Powerful explosions sent the Speeder's men to their deaths. But at this moment, 2 mysterious men wearing black masks suddenly disappeared from their spots. They pulled the crescent scimitars from the scabbards on their backs and overlapping blade shadows swept toward the window. Humph, you're biting more than you can chew. A long white-haired chiseled man in a black robe coldly hummed with contempt. He instantly dashed inside through the window and easily dodged the sweeping blade of the masked man, throwing a bamboo tube the instant after. Right as he attacked the masked man, the sharp sword suddenly formed sword images that filled air formed to clash with the bamboo tube he threw out. Hiss, hiss. 2 centipedes made strange hissing sounds. Amazingly, there were thin wings like cicadas on the backs of the 2 centipedes. They flapped their wings and instantly fell down on the masked man's shoulder and accurately bit his neck. Damn! The masked man furiously shouted and his black-gloved arms instantly caught the centipedes. But at the moment he smashed them, their terrifying poison quickly penetrated his body through the wound on his neck. The toxin quickly invaded his heart in just a few breaths, causing his burly body to crash to the floor. At the same time, the other masked man was also slain by two other strong men in black robes. Kill them. Eyes bloodshot, Jameson pointed to the three black-robed men and ordered aloud. In that instant, tens of strongmen threw their guns and aggressively charged toward the three people. They were bare-handed, but every punch they delivered caused whistling winds that would leave even a martial arts grandmaster scared. Your men won't be able to deal with them. A light voice entered Jameson's ear. A bald old man among those 20-plus people sitting cross-legged who wore a string of beads floated out like a ghost. He appeared in the midst of tens of strongmen before his voice faded away. Streams of chi flowed out and forced back 6 stalwart men, the white gloves worn by the old man leaving its print on one of the black-robed man's chest. Puff. Blood splattered and created a blood mist, yet the white glove remained unstained by the blood. But series of palm shadows filled the air, causing the other two black-robed man's pupils shrunk. As they were trying to dodge the strike, they suddenly found that the palm's shadows kept following them and couldn't be avoided. How can this be? The two black-robed old men shouted in alarm. Shortly after, they felt like their chests had been smashed by something weighing thousands of kilograms as they flew upside down and coughed blood crazily. They finally crashed down to the window, and it was unknown whether they were still alive or dead.